Penn Med School. So I'm really here to serve you, the faculty, and to help you. Primarily my job here is to help all of you in the promotion process, and making that as easy, it's not easy, but as easy and transparent as we can make it. Lucy and Susan and Corey asked us to, Lisa Bellini, who's the Senior Vice Dean of Academic Affairs here at Penn Med, to discuss the realities of life with you, sort of talk about the obstacles in particular that women have in this academic process and working in academic medicine. Mostly what I'd really like to do is answer your questions about any of these these issues. So mostly we're going to be here to open it up to have you ask questions. However, I thought I would start by letting you know a little bit about my experience, about how I got through this process. So I'm a professor on the CE track here at Penn, but I will tell you it was not an easy process for me. I had 3 very young children early in my career. I had one child when I entered my fellowship program. He was 8 weeks old when I started in pediatric cardiology here. I had another child at the end of my fellowship, and then a third during my first year as an attending. I had to make some decisions about what I was going to subspecialize in, to some degree based on the fact that I had 3 young children. So there were things that I was considering doing that I decided not to do because I had young children. And then about 3 years into my being an attending, I really was having tremendous difficulty engaging at work and being at home. And I was not doing either one very well. And so I got into a situation where, oh, Lisa's on. Hey, Lisa, you made it. I got into a situation where I felt like I was going to have to quit my job. And so I reached out to some people and figured out a way that I could work part-time for a period of time. I knew I didn't want to work part-time for my entire career, but I did want to work part-time for this time when my children were very young. And so I worked part-time. I stayed on the academic track I was on CE. The AC track didn't exist yet. And certainly there's a possibility I would have flipped tracks at that time, but it wasn't an option at that time. Anyway, I did that for 4 years. For each 2 years that I did it, I had a year added onto my promotion clock so that I didn't go up for my promotion till year 11. Most people go up in year 9. But it allowed me to have this period of time until my children were all in school that I could be at home for part of the time, 2 days a week with them, and be at work part of the time. It wasn't perfect, but it really helped me get through that period of time so that I could get back to academic medicine and subsequently be able to do my job and do that as well as I thought I could, and be at home and engaged as much as I could. So that was just something I wanted to share with you. I know Lisa also wanted to share her experiences, and she was having some technical difficulties. I introduced you, Lisa, but
thank you. And my apologies for the technical difficulties. I'm going to say a couple of personal words, and then Meryl's journey and my journey, I think, highlight why it's so important that we've most recently adopted this concept of holistic review for promotion. And I do have 5 or 6 slides to share with you just to set that stage before we open it up for questions. So I joined the faculty back in 1996. I had kind of an odd job description to start my faculty career, being recruited right out of fellowship to be the program director for the internal medicine residency program. The year before, I had a small child who was 6.5 weeks premature and required a lot of attention at home. And there were a tremendous number of sleepless nights with a premature baby that weighed 4 pounds when she was discharged. And certainly my scholarly productivity was nowhere near what it needed to be. And I often tell people in these sorts of situations, 6 years later, I had another child, but I often tell people, if you look at my CV, you can actually see where I had my kids, because my productivity really tends to, I would say, fall to zero, quite honestly, during those maternity periods. I also had some significant health challenges in my family that, if you knew what was going on in my life, you would also see that a couple of near-death experiences for parents and siblings also led to inactivity, essentially, scholarly inactivity. And so this is life. These things happen. We have to figure out how to navigate all this. And I think particularly for women, because of the primary caregiver responsibilities that we all have, both for our children, if you have them, for your partner, if you have one of those, or parents, which we all have in varying states. And Meryl and I were talking about this not too long ago. We're sort of in the sandwich phase right now, where you still have issues with your kids, although it's getting a little easier with them, but you start having issues with your parents and other older adults that you may have primary caregiving responsibilities for. And so there are always demands on your time, always, always, always. I will say that I, like Meryl, almost left academic medicine completely in 2003. I was very, very close to leaving. And I went to a seminar at the AAMC that was being given by a woman I just actually happened to be passing by. I wasn't even planning on going to this. And the advice of this woman at first I thought was completely preposterous. And I left there saying, this is nuts. I'm definitely leaving if I have to do this. And what she had basically done was turn her life upside down. And she was a night person and became a morning person, and started getting up really early in the morning, as many days a week as she possibly could. But when she left work at the end of the day, it was all about being home, focusing on her family and the other things that she liked to do. I found it fascinating. So I decided to try it as a last-ditch attempt to stay in academic medicine. And I did it for 6 months and decided actually it worked for me. And I did that for almost a decade, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, almost 7 days a week, to manage my professional responsibilities and my family responsibilities. It's not ideal, as Meryl noted. Some of this stuff isn't ideal. And honestly, our journeys should illustrate that there are systemic changes that need to be made in the way we allow for people to live their lives, their best possible lives. And so part of why we've moved in the direction of holistic review is to actually make the journey a little bit less complicated and a little, and not necessarily easier, but a bit more humanistic and compassionate, and give people an opportunity to better integrate what it is they are doing in their life, professionally, personally. Meryl, do you have anything to add to that before I talk a little bit about the process?
I would also say that the same thing happened to me with my productivity when I had my children. It went completely to zero each time I had a child, and for subsequent years after I had them. And part of the reason I went part-time during that time, in addition to just wanting to be a little bit more present with my children at home, because I would come home at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and that is when your children are the crankiest. And I literally wanted to just throw them all in bed and not have to deal with them. And that just didn't seem like a good strategy for my daily life. So, in addition to wanting to, spend more time with my kids during daytime hours, I also knew that I needed to to put an extension onto my promotion track timeline, because I wasn't going to be able to be successful unless I had this sort of respite. So I think people, not everybody's in the CE track who's on this phone call, but this applies to sort of all different aspects and all tracks at the institution, that you can take some time or pause during different parts of your career, depending on whether it has to do with children, with aging parents, with a spouse or partner who's ill. All sorts of things come up, and the institution, we are here to support you during those times.
Really important messages. So, Sue, I think you now have the slides because of our technical snafu here.
I do. Lisa, I'll pull them up.
Okay. So I just have a few slides that I want to share with people to make sure that people understand. We have gone through quite a process in the school to actually recognize all of the different pieces of how people can contribute to our community. And these were updated back in July. And I'm just going to share a few slides with you. There is a lot of information about this on the Office of Academic Affairs website. And if you Google PSOM OAA, you will get to the website, and there's a lot of information around promotion and promotion criteria, etc. So let me just go to the first slide, please, Sue. Can you click to the next one? There we go. Okay. So fundamental to promotion in all tracks, and I realize this is a mixed audience, but this is relevant really to everybody. We used to talk about continuously evolving scholarly productivity. And with the incorporation of the AC track in 2004, so nearly 20 years old, we've really shifted this, particularly in the last few years, to talk about evolving academic productivity. And academic can be very widely defined. What we want to see is evidence of upward trajectory and the impact of what it is you're doing, regardless of what track you're on. And the different tracks are obviously going to have different areas of emphasis, but evolving upward trajectory, evolving impact is really what we're looking for. If you're in one of the tracks that requires research, the expectation is that continuous scholarly productivity is also going to occur, but we've created a path that other significant achievements can also be highlighted in the case for promotion. Next slide, please, Sue. I'm not going to go through each of these in detail, but I'll call your attention to the fact that the revisions of the guidelines now talks about 6 terms, and I've already mentioned 2 of them, impact and trajectory. And these can be defined in many different ways, but the second bullet under trajectory is one of the most important points that Meryl and I are hoping to get across today. And that is that your trajectory will be interpreted within the context of mitigating life circumstances. And so it might be that overall your trajectory is just a little bit above flat, but you've had lots of different things happen over the course of your life that required you to be involved and engaged and participate. And so we're trying to recognize with all of this that life happens along with your career, and you shouldn't be penalized if you have any one of a number of situations that we've already mentioned. And so this concept of trajectory, the arc of your career and how we can assess the arc of your career becomes very important in this discussion. Next slide. Collaborative research is also critically important. So years ago, collaborative research wasn't really recognized, but at this point, it really is recognized. So what are your distinctive contributions? How do you function as a part of a team? And can we, for example, perform what we commonly refer to as the subtraction test? So if you took your role out of the scholarship or out of the research or the work, could the work have occurred? Could the paper have been written? And if the answer to that is really no, then you were a key contributor to that body of work and that paper in a substantive way. Not everybody can be first author. Not everybody could be last author. But in many instances, the contributions that people make are critical, pivotal to that work actually moving forward.
Recording
Community. Okay, sorry about that. Community engagement was on the previous slide. That's another area where we've really put a lot of attention around what are people doing in the community. You can define community a lot of different ways. It can be our local West Philadelphia community. It could be the Penn community. It could be the Delaware Valley region. It could be an international community. So community engagement is very important to us as a school. People's efforts related to inclusion, diversity, and equity are critically important. And you see that here under institutional citizenship. And then finally, professionalism is the sixth term. This is not a new concept for us in our promotion criteria, but it is highlighted in these guidelines as a key feature of what we expect of our faculty members. Next slide. So what we're trying to do now is assess your impact and trajectory over time. I already talked about the need for continuous scholarly productivity for those where it's relevant. Any research domain is fine. People have a misconception that they need to do a certain type of research in order to be successful. It's actually not true. One of the most incredible things about our faculty is the heterogeneity and the different types of scholarship and academic work that people do. That is truly extraordinary when we hear about cases on a regular basis. And then what have your contributions to inclusion, diversity, and equity been? And what is your community engagement look like? And those things are carefully weighted, particularly if they align with your academic work and they're complementary to your academic work. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to read through the next three slides. You can have these slides and have access to these slides, but it gives you some ideas for how we're looking at the impact related to scholarly activity, which you see here. Next slide, please. The education impact. Next slide, please. And then there's a slide on clinical impact. One more slide, Sue. And that brings us to holistic review. And that's really what we were hoping to talk to you about today. So next slide, please. So one of the key pieces of advice that I hope you take away from this session today is paying close attention to your personal statement, regardless of what track you're on. And importantly, the second bullet of this really marks a sea change in the way we think about the promotions process for our school. We used to ask people, describe 3 to 5 of your most significant scholarly accomplishments, scholarly achievements, papers, along that line. Now we're asking for your 3 to 5 most significant accomplishments. If you're a tenure track scientist and you have an independent research program, you likely, most of your significant accomplishments, if not all, will be related to research. But if you're an academic clinician and your role is very different, you don't have an independent research program, but you've dedicating and building your career, for example, in quality, safety, and value, and you've created a program to decrease length of stay or decrease readmissions for heart failure by developing a diuretic clinic that allows people to come in and just be diuresed without having to be admitted to the hospital. Actually, not making that up, it's a real thing. done by an academic clinician who had a real interest in improving the quality of care of this patient population. That is a very important accomplishment, and that should be recognized. It's an academic accomplishment in many ways. It's affected the care of patients. You may be choosing to write about that. You may be choosing to speak about it at other places who are interested in establishing a similar sort of program. There are hundreds of these kinds of examples of people's significant accomplishments that may not necessarily be related to a grant or a paper or a program guideline that was created. So this is now your opportunity to share with us, your departmental co-op, PSOM co-op, what are your most significant accomplishments? And then you should really think about whether or not you want to share any mitigating circumstances with the group. Next slide, please. And this is really close to the end of what I was going to share with you. So we recognize, the university recognizes, the school recognizes for a long time that life events occur. The pandemic really made that, put a punctuation point, exclamation point after that statement. And the school and the university recognizes that significant events can alter your trajectory, can impact your trajectory. Some candidates now, because we've been encouraging this, are starting to incorporate mitigating factors into their personal statements so that they're available for extramural consultants, co-op, the dean's office, so we can use those and understand the context around your life when making these decisions. Some people prefer that that information is not shared with their extramural consultants. This is a very personal decision, and you should have advice from your mentors on whether or not you choose to do this. If you don't want these mitigating circumstances to go to external reviewers, you can just put an addendum on your personal statement that stays internal. And we're starting to see more and more individuals do that. It's not necessary to have mitigating circumstances for people that aren't in a mandatory probationary period. But if you've got a context that you feel the committee really needs to understand, and for example, maybe you're an associate professor in tenure or CE or in the academic clinician track, and your trajectory just isn't quite as steep and you'd like to be considered for promotion to professor, we need to understand the context. And I think for women in general, people who are underrepresented in medicine, it is a real opportunity to explain a little bit of your life so that we can help you and evaluate you in the best possible context. Next slide. Okay, so that's, you can take the slides down. I will say again that there is a lot of information around all of this on the Faculty Affairs website. And I don't know if Meryl talked about the Thriving at Penn podcast series yet. She can speak to that. But we've tried to put a lot of support around some of these issues. And maybe Meryl, before we open it up, you just want to mention that.
Sure. So another email blast will go out today, but about 2 weeks ago, we sent out a blast to everybody about a series of podcasts that we just put out called Thriving at PSOM. They will answer a lot of the questions around these issues that Lisa just addressed. They talk about impact and trajectory in each of the tracks. So CE, tenure, and AC are all addressed in these podcasts, as well as extensions, which would be a very important one for discussing realities of life. So that's discussed in detail. In addition to what to put on your personal statement, what to put on your educational impact statement. There's one on mentors and sponsors. So I encourage you all. There'll be another email blast today to look out for it. They're very easy to access from the OAA website. They will ultimately be on Spotify and Apple, probably in the next couple weeks, but in the meantime, you can easily access them from the OAA website. And I look forward to you listening to them and potentially providing some feedback as well. So just know that they're out there.
Okay. I can't see the chat at all. I don't know who can, but
I can
certainly-
monitor it if you want.
Sure.
So are there questions if you raise your hand or put your name in the chat?